What's up, A to Z Sports Live on a Friday. Going to have a great show today, talking a little bit of something we talked about earlier in the week, but then Brian Callahan and other Titans coaches talked about the not being satisfied with getting the football to two of their highest paid guys on the offense. And I like where we're going to take this. Titans coaches not satisfied, and they take ownership for missing pieces in the Titans 1-3 start to the season, trying to get to 2-3 against a Colts team that's very much banged up. We'll get a best bet for this game towards the end of the show after talking a lot of Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins today. So the Titans need both those guys to get involved early for a chance to get to 2-3 against this Colts team that seems like, Sam, it's going to be Will Levis versus Anthony Richardson at quarterback for both teams. It seems like the second-year guys are trending towards being able to play after missing some time, each with injuries. It's also a Friday, which means ain't that good news to send us all to the weekend. So, Sam, hope you're doing well. Welcome in. Let's get this thing off and rolling.
Hey, let's do it here. I'm excited for this game. I'm excited to talk about this game. I think the Titans got a little bit of a break in the fact that Anthony Richardson is probably going to play. I think that's better for the Titans than Joe Flacco. So feeling pretty good sitting at 1-3, feeling like, I said it on primetime earlier this week, Austin, but I'm more optimistic than I feel like I should be. For whatever reason, this week, I just have like a positive vibe surrounding this week and this team where I feel good about their chances this weekend. Hope all of you are feeling good. And if you are, even if you're not, go ahead and share the show this morning on a Friday morning. Get the word out there that A to Z Sports is live talking Titans Colts. So hit the share button in the bottom right corner if you're watching on Facebook. Take the YouTube link and send it around if you're watching on YouTube, or retweet us at ATOZ Sports on Twitter. That's the best way to support. Leave a like on the show before we go and kick it off on a Friday morning.
Yep, we'll soon officially welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Sam Phelan, one of our Titans reporters for A to Z Sports.com. And we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Link to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Also hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. Got to thank our sponsors. They make it happen for us, and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process. See them in Lebanon or online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans at fbhp.com/ATOZ. And then also with our friends at TDOT, be part of the solution to end littering in Tennessee and find out how you can join the campaign. Nobody Trashes Tennessee.com. So, all right, let's one comment that I saw, where to go. Andrew, everything adds up to a Titans win, so naturally the Titans will probably lose. That's kind of what I thought when Sam was like, I've got some good vibes about this. I'm feeling very confident about the Titans' ability to win this game. That's usually when they get you, because something weird will happen, because the last time you probably had that feeling was when Malik Willis and the Packers came to Nissan Stadium and waltzed down the field for a 7-0 lead behind Malik Willis, who they traded away. But it does feel like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are trending to be the starters. Levis with a throwing shoulder injury. Richardson missed last week's game for the Colts against the Jags, where Flacco threw for about 500 yards and a bunch of points and a loss to the Jags. But a hip pointer is what kept Richardson out. Seems like those guys will be in and starting at Nissan Stadium on Sunday. So the other aspect of this is, Sam, coming out of the bye week, it was Wednesday morning. Easton and I's show topic was, what's the most fixable thing in the Titans have right now coming out of the bye week? And my answer, and Easton agreed with me, was getting DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley involved more. These guys are getting $39 million in cash combined, 25 Ridley, 14 D-Hop in their bank accounts this year from the organization. It's not their fault that it's not going their way. It's a lot of different reasons of why these two guys haven't been involved as much as they should be. But Sam, what's kind of, before we hear from three different coaches on the Titans organization, what's your kind of take on the first four games from both Ridley and D-Hop so far? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. We're back now.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Yeah, D-Hop, there was some concern early on because he, with the injury in the MCL and having to work his way back and get fully healthy, you kind of expected it would take a few weeks for him to get back up to speed. But really, for an offense that came in with a lot of hype, this idea that Brian Callahan is this offensive-minded guy who can work with quarterbacks, who can scheme receivers open, and fans cited everything that had happened in Cincinnati and the inclusion of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and pointed to how Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Boyd were going to fit into all three of those roles. And so for both of these guys to have multiple games where they're really just irrelevant and not involved in the offense has been, I think, maybe the biggest disappointment of the season so far. Will Levis has certainly not lived up to the expectations of some fans, but absolutely the lack of passing offense. Austin, I told you in my preseason predictions, I felt like this passing offense would be underwhelming and the Titans would be more of a run-heavy team when they're successful. And so far, that has been the case. But even I expected Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins to get some. So that seems to be one of the things that I think the Titans need to look in the mirror and figure out how they do differently, because I don't think it's, Calvin Ridley's not playing well, DeAndre Hopkins isn't playing well. Like, these are guys that have been doing it for a decade now and been productive everywhere that they've been. I mean, Calvin Ridley comes off of not playing football and goes for 1,000 yards with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So how are you using both Hopkins and Ridley? How is it different from how they've been used in the past? And how do you tweak it? Because when you have playmakers like this, they are the guys that are going to make life easier for your young quarterback. And Will Levis needs all the help he can get right now.
Yeah, so let's hear from the head coach, Brian Callahan, on when he was asked about these two guys, Ridley specifically at the very beginning, and then also DeAndre Hopkins. This was from Wednesday.
When you look at Ridley's numbers for the last couple of weeks, what are some reasons that factor into those kind of
Well, the Miami game was the amount of runs that we had in the game. Sort of take that game in and of itself. But yeah, I got to do a better job of finding ways to get Calvin the ball. Need to use his speed and explosiveness more. Just get it in his hands every which way we can, and that's that's on me to get him in those spots where he can get the ball more and let Will play football. But need to find a way to get him going. I told him that this morning too. Just, hey man, got to find a way to get you going and just be patient. We'll get it to you. But he's great. He's a team player. He just wants to win. But like all those guys, they want their part of the action and want to be able to help. So that's mostly on me to find ways to give him the ball.
Do you ever have concerns about guys like that coming in after a big contract and maybe pressing it all?
No, nope. And those are the things that you have the relationship and the conversation with him about it. Just like I told him, he doesn't need to press. It's on me to find ways to get it to him. Just keep playing football and the ball come your way. Because anytime you start trying to do too much or go out of your way or press to try to make plays, usually the negative things happen. So let the game come to you and let the ball come to you, and it will. Same thing I told Hop early on too. It's the same process that we got to keep finding ways to get you involved, keep you involved, and don't trust me. It's on my mind. I'm trying to do the best I can to get it to you. So just let it come to you, and we'll keep rolling.
So there's Brian Callahan. Jonathan asked, who's Kathleen? Kathleen is Brian Callahan's aunt. So Bill Callahan's sister, who was able to beat leukemia, in the past. And it's the crucial catch game for the NFL. So a lot of players and coaches, you'll see them wearing T-shirts pregame and a lot throughout the week with the color that represents that specific cancer and that person that they're fighting for. So that's who Kathleen is on that. But Sam, what were your thoughts on what Callahan had to say about both Ridley and the money factor, right? Because I know that's a sensitive topic for players. Whenever somebody's like, hey, you're getting paid a lot and you're doing a little, that's not usually how things have a good cordial conversation whenever things are presented like that. But that is the reality right now with Calvin Ridley. But I don't know how much of it is really his fault.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a distinction to be made there, right? Like, the Titans are paying Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, frankly, too much money for too little production. But I don't think I blame either wide receiver for that lack of production. As Brian Callahan says, it's kind of on him. It's kind of on this coaching staff, on the team, on the quarterback in some aspects to get the ball to those guys find a way to scheme those guys open, or just scheme your offense to get the ball to them. I mean, Austin, we talked here about Will Levis's increased efficiency and completion percentage and how it's up 10% from last year, but his yards per attempt is way down. And the leading receivers on this team are the running backs at this point in time in terms of receptions and targets. So you're giving too much stuff underneath, too much stuff to your running backs. And what this coaching staff needs to adapt and like shift their mindset to realize is you have a $90 million wide receiver in Calvin Ridley. You've got a future Hall of Fame wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, who's making pretty good money too. And you have to utilize those players. So the money is absolutely a factor. You cannot pay a guy like Calvin Ridley that much money and then not use him. You cannot pay a guy like DeAndre Hopkins the money you gave him and not use him. So it's not a factor for the players. I know they want theirs. They want their targets and their touches, but it should be for the Titans moving forward, not to get weird or anything, because this is not where I want to take this conversation. But like, this is the argument that John Robinson once made for not keeping AJ Brown, is this idea of, well, he wants 100 million. And if we're not going to target him 9 times a game, like maybe it's not worth it. And the sad truth of that is that is the right mentality if you're not going to target him, which is why you should target him. It's why you should pay AJ and target him 9 times a game. But it's why if you pay Calvin Ridley, you also need to get him the ball, because it's worthless having him run go routes that are decoys if you're not going to actually throw the football to him.
Yeah. So here is Ridley's catches on the 4 games so far. 3 in Chicago. Some of those Levis had him and missed him. 4 against the Jets and a touchdown, also had a rushing touchdown, and then 1 and 1. So 1 catch for 9 yards, 1 catch for 5 yards in the last 2 games for the Titans. And so the Dolphins game is what it is, right? I think we understand that. But here's offensive coordinator Nick Holtz on these 2 guys as well.
Outside of that, what's the satisfaction level when you guys as coaches sit down and look at how much you're featuring your highest paid stars on offense?
Not satisfied, to be very honest. You know, the second half of really the Miami game, we, you know, like we said, turned into a 4-minute drill, kind of took that one out. And then you go to Green Bay, you know, we had some targets lined up for those guys, and there was some pass protection issues and quarterback hits. And I know now it feels, with the bye, it feels like it was, you know, a month ago, but it wasn't that long ago. So then that's really where the start of that lack of production came up. You know, you go back to the Jet game, we're still getting D-Hop going, so he's still kind of on the pitch count, and Ridley had targets. He had a couple big plays down the field. So it's really been 2 games, and I would say it's really been a game and a half. So if you take the Packers game, first half of the Dolphins game, and then the second half to me is a little bit of a wash. But that being said, it's important for us to get the ball to those guys, and you can't win in the NFL by just being a 22 personnel run team, hoping that they don't score. And, you know, we got a great defense and that, but we got to do our part too. And those guys are going to be big factors for us going forward.
Any of that impetus on Will, or is it on you guys to scheme up during the week looks for those guys and just let Will do his job?
It's on the coaches. I think it's the coaches. We want to put all those guys, we want to move them around. You know, formationally, we don't just kind of line up in 2x2 or 3x1 and just kind of go play and say, the ball goes wherever it goes. We shift and motion and move guys around and try to get guys free access. So it's on the coaches, you know, and then we just want Will to go through the reads, right? We're not sitting there going, okay, now it's this time DeAndre hasn't gotten a ball. Let's throw it to him no matter what. Where that's kind of where you get in trouble, and all of a sudden he's forcing it to somebody and things like that. That's on the coaches, and we got to get those guys more involved early.
Sam, trivia question. How many games this year do the Titans have where DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley each have more than 1 catch, multiple catches for both guys?
0.
0 is correct.
It's like, well, Ridley had 1 each of the last 2, and Hopkins had 1 catch in the first 2. So
one guy 0 gets a couple, the other guy gets 1. Like 0 games where these guys each have more than 1 catch, which is
crazy,
insane.
So, of course, he should not be satisfied, right?
Yes.
Like, duh. But I mean, it's good to hear him admit it and acknowledge it. I was just kind of, while that video was playing, Austin, I was looking back, and we can kind of get into our question before I really answer here. But I was getting into the history of targets for each one of these guys, and the success that they've had when they get a certain number of targets versus what
Ooh,
they've gotten this year.
interesting.
So we can get into
Yeah.
the question before I reveal some of those.
Yeah,
numbers.
let's go ahead and ask this question. So we want to do a combo, right? Because we're trying to get both guys involved here in the Titans offense early on. So let's set the bar. What's the lowest amount of combined targets to Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins the Titans need per game? What's the lowest amount of combined targets to Ridley and Hopkins per game for the Titans to have success? We've been talking about this. Both coaches we've heard so far admit it's a coach's problem, not a player problem. So they're taking ownership. They're not satisfied with it. But what's the lowest number of combined targets to Ridley and Hop per game for the Titans? But real quick, let me tell you guys about the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org. They're the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you get hurt in life, you have to go to the Bone and Joint Institute to get it fixed, to get it taken care of. Don't just sit on the sideline and let that thing linger. Let it continue to bother you, impact your sleep or your activity or your family time, whatever it is. Go get it checked out like I've done a couple times in the last few years, whether it's my knee tendonitis or plantar fasciitis in my foot. Both things are annoying. Both things cause pain when you wake up the next morning, like, don't feel comfortable. Got it fixed and got it taken care of with the Bone and Joint Institute. Boneandjointtn.org is where to book an appointment.
Today's show powered by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports when you sign up with BetMGM for MLB playoffs, NHL action, college football, and of course the NFL. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports and get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses with the sportsbook born in Vegas, BetMGM.com.
All right, so Sam, let's get to the chat. We're asking, what's the lowest amount of combined targets to Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins the Titans need per game? Because we just said it. For catches, 0 times so far in 4 games have both guys had at least 2 catches in a game. So that's crazy. It's bad. What's the lowest number of combined targets that these guys need? What are you seeing from the chat so far this morning?
We've got 11 from Mario, 20 from Darren, 15 from Titans Kyle, 6 from Bad to the Bone, 16, 20, 5, 8, 10, 14, 10, 16, 10, 15, 10, 15 and 18. We got 20, 12, 10, 10, 14 from Top Tier, 15 from Vanessa, 18 from Yuri, 10 from Patch, 16 from Jeff, 10, 15, 12, 12, 14 from Chris. So people are in the double digits, Austin, which, would not to spoil my answer or anything, but I think is, you got to be in the double digits for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, are you close to them? Where are you at with that?
I mean, you have to be in the double digits. So let's go through in Chicago, the 2 combined for 8. Against the Jets, the 2 combined for 8. Against the Packers, the 2 combined for 10 even. And against the Dolphins, a different type of game, they combined for 7. So 8, 8, 10, 7. That's not enough. So if you are 10 or below, that is not high enough. I think it needs to be 15. I think 15 is where they need to be. Because how many times you throw the ball? Like, you're going to throw the ball, you're going to drop back to throw, 30 times a game?
Yeah.
So they need to have half. I'm understanding that.
I mean, even if it's 25, right? Like, or let's say you throw the ball 25 to 30 times. I mean, how many balls are you throwing to Tyler Boyd? 3. Like, how many balls are you throwing to Traylon Burks? Maybe 0, maybe 1.
I mean, 0 to NWI.
You get a handful to the tight ends. So I mean, maybe you've got 10 total targets or a little over 10 targets combined between your tight ends and Tyler Boyd, or a check down to the running back or something. So that, I mean, that leaves 15 targets or whatever for your best wide receivers.
I'm going to go as far as this. If the Titans go 3 and out on their first possession against the Colts and Ridley or Hopkins don't get a target, I'm going to be irrationally mad. if it's like run and then scramble throwaway because you couldn't give the ball, it needs to be the first play from scrimmage, to be honest. I feel like it's just give them the football, show us that you're ready to go out there and force feed and give the ball to the guys you're paying a bunch of money to. Obviously, don't get too aggressive with it. Don't be don't overcorrect, but I do think it needs to be a focus of the game plan. Two of your best playmakers are these two guys, and you can't just turn around and hand them the football. You've got to call something and throw it to them early. I think they need to pass more on first down early in the game. I think they're getting caught up in the establishing the run stuff a little too much at times. But I think they need to come out and early throw it to one of these guys in the first play or two. So 15 is my low bar. 15 targets. We're not talking about receptions, just targets.
Yeah, I'm at 12.
Okay.
I'm at 12. I don't hate 15. Like, let's get into some of these numbers. So last year, DeAndre Hopkins, games, Austin, with less than 5 targets in a game for the Titans last year.
And Diop played all 17, correct?
He played, I believe, all 17. Yeah, all 17.
Under 5 targets. 6. Oh.
1, 13, 5, 7, 6, 11, 5, 6, 11, 9, 5, 5, 12, 12, 9, 4, 7, 10. He had 4 against Seattle in week 16, but that 137 targets. Every time Calvin Ridley had 80 receiving yards or more for the Jags last year, he had 6 or more targets in the games. These are guys that need to be fed. They need to get their looks. I don't think it's unrealistic to expect 6 targets apiece for Ridley and Hopkins with, all right, maybe there's one week that, Ridley gets 8 and Hopkins gets 4. Hopkins gets 8 and Ridley gets 4, and that'll change. But
yeah, sure.
Like, you got to get them well into double digits. I think they have to get closer to half of your overall passing targets. And so if you're throwing the ball 12 times to Hopkins and Ridley, that gives you plenty of options to work it around to your running backs and tight ends and Tyler Boyd, and throw one ball to Treylon Burks for all I care. Who cares? But you have to get your most reliable guys the football. And as we've seen, I mean, even this year, DeAndre Hopkins this season, Austin, 4 targets against Miami doesn't really matter because of the way that offense worked, but not involved in Chicago. 1 target, caught it for 8 yards. Not involved against the Jets. 2 targets, 1 catch for 9 yards. The one time you incorporate DeAndre Hopkins, 7 targets, he catches 6 of them for 73 yards and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when he was involved, he was really good. Same thing with Calvin Ridley. 6 targets against the Jets. He goes for 4 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. He had 50 receiving yards against the Bears with 7 targets, and then really not involved at all in the last 2 games. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. When you target these guys and involve them, the production comes from it. They're that good at receiver that they will make plays for you.
I 100% agree. And I think that's the frustrating part, is they just, again, it's what I said Wednesday when Easton and I were talking about this, is that sometimes offensive-minded coaches early on in their head coaching career or their play calling career, which is both for Brian Callahan, is I'm going to run my offense, right? My offense is why I got this opportunity to do this job, so I'm going to run my offense. And Ridley and Hopkins are a part of the offense, just like Nick Vannett, Josh Wiley, and Chigakonkwo. But no, they're different. They're very different. They're being paid very differently, and they're very different players. So you need to make your offense more Ridley and Hopkins heavy. It's the same. It's like, I think wide receivers should be treated like basketball players. It's
get them the ball. Yeah.
Give them the ball,
shots.
Screen them open, right? It's have them move, set them up to have mismatches and win. And let them shoot, be volume shooters towards your best players. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. So what do you think, just diving in real quick, why do you think we are at this point that we still haven't gotten it? Because it's not like this is an issue Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz have not talked about in the past.
Sure.
Holtz has said, we want to get Hop more involved for weeks, and we kind of have seen it go up, and then we've seen some regression. We've seen Calvin Ridley's regression when Hop is targeted, that Ridley just becomes a non-factor in the offense, and it's not both of them. So do you feel like this is because you could identify a handful of issues, right? I saw somebody in the chat said it's the quarterback's fault, even though the Titans coaches have said it's not the quarterback's fault, that's on them. So is it the way that they're scheming up Hopkins and Ridley and the offensive line can't do it? Are they prioritizing the wrong thing? Where do you feel like the disconnect is that we're still, in week 6 now, wondering how to get the stars the ball?
Well, okay, so we are in week 6. It's going into game 5. So there's just 4 games. And I do think the sample size is still very small because you have to give grace. The first 2 games for DeAndre Hopkins don't really count,
Sure.
because he's coming back from the injury. You'd like to see it be better, but you have to understand that, okay, we can live with that, right? We get it. The Dolphins second half game also kind of doesn't count. So now you're really talking about, for DeAndre Hopkins, 1.5 games.
And he was involved in those 1.5
And
games.
in those 1.5 games, he was actually over 100 yards in those 6 quarters.
Yeah.
If you combine Packers and Dolphins first half, that's what I think he had 8 catches for 108 or something like that and a touchdown. Okay, that's a good rate. So that's maybe DeAndre Hopkins part of this is trending the correct direction. But Calvin Ridley's at the same time, D-Hop's going for 8 for 108 and a touchdown. Ridley's gone 2 for 14. And now it's how do you find the balance of both? And I do think you can look at the offensive line. You got sacked 8 times in the Packers game. How many of those 8 sacks were close to Ridley targets? Maybe a couple of them. Then you also have Will Levis, who, if we go back and look at his stats, he kind of locks into one guy. Last year, we saw him lock in.
Okay, well, let's go there for a minute, though.
Okay.
But if he's locking into one guy, right, you're talking about the fact that he's going to his primary read right. So why is his primary read then not Calvin Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, I think against the Packers it was.
Well, it was Hopkins, right? But only really in the second half. Hopkins really got going in the second half. Really one drive of that game. I think he had 3 catches for a big chunk of his yards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where I have an issue with that sort of argument, because if Levis's primary read is where he's throwing the ball, why is his primary read not his best player? Why does he have so many plays that he throws to his running back or tight end when, you have Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins on your team? To me, that is not a Will Levis thing. That's Will Levis throwing the ball where the play is designed to go.
Yes.
Right. So maybe there's a different argument. Does he need to get through his progressions to make the offense more efficient? But I don't think that's a knock on Will Levis if you're not throwing the ball to your better players, if he's going where the progression tells him to go.
That's fair comment. I think Will Levis looks at his pre-snap read a lot. And so maybe sometimes the alignment from the defense dictates to go off of one of those guys. And, look, the 2 interceptions that he's thrown that were really bad in the last 2 games were towards DeAndre Hopkins. The pick 6 to Jair Alexander, he was sitting on it. And then the Emmanuel Ogbah, we talked about that against the Dolphins. He didn't see the guy dropping back. So your point is good. I think it's the fact of he did target against the Jets. Let me go back to the numbers. Against the Jets, he targeted Ridley 6 times.
Yeah.
And they gave him the ball in a handoff once and he scored a touchdown on it. And I think that was, you saw, so in the 2 games outside of Chicago and Miami, you saw them go, and really, even in Chicago, he targeted him 7 times too. It's just they missed.
I mean,
so
yeah,
I
but
think
even
games,
if you look at the Jets game, right, 4 for 77 for Ridley on 6 targets. He had a drop on a deep ball that would have put him at 5 catches, well over 100 yards.
I struggle calling that a drop. It would have been an insane catch, but it would have been I don't call it a drop. It's not a drop. It's
also not a missed throw. It should have been
just
there.
It would have been a really tough play. But
yeah.
Anyway, that's not a drop to me. But then you also have, the game against Chicago. There could have been, Ridley could have had 2 touchdowns
and Levis missed him a lot in that game. There was one, I remember watching it because it was going away from me from the press box, where you just saw Ridley get open down the sideline and Levis overshot him. I do kind of agree with Daniel, by the way. I think that ball kind of went through Ridley's hands, even though it might have been a difficult catch.
it would have been, it was a very high. I don't like calling like high difficulty catches drops.
It's I understand your
See what I'm saying?
point, right? It's different than a slant that hits him in the hands and
Yeah.
like
His technique wasn't great because he didn't have his hands together. Like, I've talked about like pinkies if you're in the basket, and that would have made, and pinkies and forearms to create the basket. He was running at such a high rate of speed and having to track it over his shoulder. Like his arms didn't get in, right? It's a tough catch, high level. And Cap says that was an easy catch. I don't.
No,
think
I
so.
mean it's a difficult catch. I mean, you could say right what the chat is saying, which I would agree with, which is you're making $100 million to make those catches, right? Like you throw that ball to NWI and he doesn't catch it. I'm not blaming NWI. I'm like, yeah, that's not really NWI's job.
Yeah, but again,
like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a difference when you're Calvin Ridley. You're getting paid $20 million to be a deep
Yeah,
threat.
and he did the next drive by having a ridiculous one-handed catch sliding underneath Sauce Gardner ahead of the safety. It's like he made 1 out of 2 crazy good catches for a touchdown. It's like those are I'm just not calling it a drop. Should he have caught the ball? Sure, he could have, but I'm just not like going to ding him for a drop. I don't think that's fair. And like anything that touches the hand should be a catch. It didn't touch his hands. His hands didn't get up enough, and it went through his hands because he didn't get there. So anyway, we're getting sidetracked. I think back to your point is when you're looking at the Will Levis effect of Ridley and Hopkins, in 3 out of the 4 games, one of those guys has had at least 6 targets. And I think you're seeing there's a lot of sacks that are happening, and there's ball going other places. I think Will Levis struggles to get multiple guys involved. I would be curious. I don't know if you have it or if we can look at it. Like the second guy in targets in Levis's games last year, right? Like what is the difference in like the guy who had the most targets in the game and the guy who had the second most targets in the game? My gut tells me that there's a pretty decent difference of like last year, Hopkins might have had 9 targets and the next guy has 3.
Part of that could be the wide receiver core being like Hopkins to nobody.
Big drop, big difference, right? Yeah. Hopkins has 10 targets. Chris Moore should have 3. Like, yeah.
But
But
might be too many for Chris Moore.
I don't know. Chris Moore, sneaky. I liked Chris Moore in a role. I think
Chris
Moore,
job.
No, not Arizona. He did, but I don't remember. But like Chris Moore, I think would be better than Burks or NWI or maybe even Boyd. And anyway, to go along with Ridley and Hopkins. But I do think it's a Will Levis does lock into one guy. One guy is going to get the lion's share of the targets. And can he find that balance of having both guys be effective?
Sure. I'm going to kind of go for a different answer here of like why I think this is the case, because I go to what I talked about, which is Levis's primary reads and where his primary reads are going more often than not. And the fact, combining it, let's see if we actually have a video here.
We have Tolbert available. It's at the very bottom.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we have it, but yes, I do actually. Here, I'll play the beginning of this because what's one thing that Will Levis did last year that we don't see him do this year? Wow throws. So let's listen to Will Levis earlier this week.
Wow throws last year. Brian talked about those coming in as one of the things that made you an attractive guy to inherit. Seems like fewer of those this year. Where do you think they are?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've had a couple good ones out there, but I feel like at the end of the day, I'm just taking the throws that I have available to me, and I could argue that some of those throws were not necessary last year, and maybe I had an opportunity to make those dangerous throws this year that I haven't. I feel like that's one of the areas I've improved on the most is just not throwing it into just team meetings and just cloudy windows. And then
so wild throws. He says, I haven't thrown the ball into tight windows or team meetings this year. He's taken what's available to him. I think, Austin, that's been some of the central messaging from Brian Callahan. I think it's a big reason why we go over those numbers from the other day where Will Levis's completion percentage is up 10%. He's taking more efficient looks. He's not forcing the ball into windows that he shouldn't be. But as a result, he's moving the ball less consistently, and he's throwing to guys like his running backs or his tight ends on check downs and shallow routes instead of, pushing the ball to his better weapons and better players like Calvin Ridley down the field or DeAndre Hopkins in a contested window. So I think that is part of Brian Callahan's messaging to Will Levis. It's been what we've heard from Callahan all offseason building up to this year, that he wants to create an efficient, easy passing game for his quarterback to be successful and, complete a high percentage of his looks. They've done that, right? It's what Callahan did with Jake Browning in Cincinnati. They've done it to a degree with Will Levis. And I think, it's one of the reasons why if you ask Brian Callahan, he would say, take away some of those bad turnovers. And he's really happy with how Levis has done executing what he's been asked. I want to see them get less conservative. I want to see more wow throws. I can live with a pick down the field because Will Levis is trying to make a crazy play if it means you're also creating multiple explosives through the passing game and gaining big yards through the air. I think that is part of what makes Will Levis special, and it's a trade-off that you have. The same way you have it with a Josh Allen or a Matthew Stafford or any of these big arm, special arm talent quarterbacks. You deal with the upside, which is all of these crazy big deep throws and these games, and sometimes it results in 250-yard 3-touchdown games like we saw in his debut. Other times it doesn't go that well and there's more turnovers, but you're at least creating more explosives through the air. So I want to see the Titans get less conservative with their play calling, with their primary reads, with the way that they're targeting it, and let the gunslinger be a gunslinger, as JR says here.
Yeah. I mean, I do too. I want to see Levis play 3.
Right, totally.
Doesn't it feel like he's thinking? I mean, quarterbacks have to think. Don't get me wrong. I do feel like this offense, he is trying to do something that doesn't come naturally to him. Naturally, he is going to push the ball down the field, and he is having to guard against that, which might make him slightly slower processing because he's having to be unnatural. Does that make sense?
Sure. I don't know. I don't know if I think it's slower processing, but I do think he's cognizant of that, right? Like it's in his mind, and maybe it's not slowing him down, but it's definitely making him think differently and not just react. He's thinking instead of reacting. Perhaps. I don't know if I would go that far as to like what's going on in his brain, but I do think you are intentionally nerfing your quarterback's best skill, which feels a little counterintuitive. I do think, right, there are times and places to be efficient and take the easy passes, but in a lot of these games that we've seen the Titans take those easy ones and kind of do some simpler play calling. I mean, look at the Chicago game. How many times were they, running the ball, getting stopped for a 2 1-yard gain, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, whatever it is. They end up in a 3rd and long scenario, and they're just throwing the ball 3, 4, 5 yards where it's like, all right, gain of 6, but it's still 4th down. Gain of 7, but it's still 4th down. We're completing passes, but we're not really moving the ball. Yeah, we saw a lot of that. And, I think Will Levis, like I just said, his best trait as a quarterback is his ability to make special throws. Yeah. It's his ability to throw it deep. He's got a very quick, lightning fast release where he can get the ball out and dart it into some tight windows. And he plays his best and does those things when he's just going, when it's free, like you said. And so I think this idea of we need to make him more efficient to limit the mistakes, one, hasn't limited the mistakes. The turnovers are happening regardless. You're just kind of taking away the explosive aspect of your offense. So I don't know.
It's not easy. It's definitely confusing. Because he even was like, I'm taking care of the football, except for when I don't. It is very strange. King BC Super Chat says, lock in and like the show. We do have a follow-up question for you guys about these two receivers, and I think this is an interesting one because I honestly don't know exactly how I feel about it yet. I'm gonna make my decision on the fly. But who is more essential to get involved in the game plan? Is it Ridley or is it Hopkins?
You can only pick one. If you could
yes.
pick one to get like big targets, Ridley or
more
Hopkins.
essential, right? Like they're both essential, but who is more essential to get involved in the Titans game plan? Is it Calvin Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins? We'll get to your comments on that one. Maybe I'll put up a YouTube poll for this one with an A versus B type answer. But first, TDOT is where you should check out how to be a part of the solution to end littering across the state of Tennessee. Over 88 million pieces of litter on our roadways, and we can all be a part of the solution to help end littering in Tennessee. TDOT spends $23 million a year. That's a lot of the state's budget going towards picking up trash on the roads. It's something that we can all help to maybe save some of that budget to go to other places. And then we can just have a prettier, cleaner state. Tennessee can be beautiful and is beautiful with a lot of rolling hills and the different valleys and rivers and all the different green trees and fun things that we have in our state, but litter ruins it all. So you can learn how to be a part of the solution by stop littering, pick up litter when you see it, join local cleanups with you and your family, get the kids involved in some volunteer activity, and visit nobodytrashestennessee.com. That's nobodytrashestennessee.com to find a local cleanup organized already. Just you got to sign up, show up. That's all it is for you guys. Nobodytrashestennessee.com.
Today's show powered by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports, and your first bet is risk-free. Your first bet, you get that money back in the form of a bonus bet if it misses. So whether it's the NFL, NHL, NBA, college football, we got MLB playoffs in full swing, whatever it is, use the bonus code ATOZ Sports. And if your first bet loses, you still get that money back in the form of a bonus bet. That's the best way to do sports betting when the risk is limited, and you get two chances to win big with BetMGM.com and the bonus code ATOZ Sports.
All right, so this question is, who is more essential to get involved in the game plan between Ridley and Hopkins? Who is more essential? So I'll work on a YouTube poll, Sam, while you hit the chat between these two receivers. Who is more essential in this offensive game plan?
Sorry, letting out a yawn on a
long week.
Friday morning. Yeah, it has been. Jay says it's Hopkins. I've got Ridley from Scott. Daniel says Ridley. Ridley from Hoshi. Ridley from Clayton. Ridley from Top Tier. Joey says D-Hop. Jay follows up with his Hopkins and says he's got the hands. Ethan says Hopkins. Highway Rambo says Hopkins. Ashley and Kinslow are both saying Ridley. Randy likes Ridley for his big playability. We got this week Ridley from Eric, so he's taking it week to week. Alex says Hopkins. Reginald says it's D-Hop. Just Smash says Hopkins, who he trusts more. Steve says Ridley. Willie says Ridley. Brandon is Ridley. Zach says Hopkins. Major Keys says Ridley. Ridley from Karen. Ridley from Gene. Ridley's bigger plays from Yuri. We've got Hopkins from Denise. We've got Ridley from Rooney. Pretty split. I would say Ridley probably has the edge. Yuri says Hopkins will get his anyways. Jimmy says Hopkins can get it anywhere around him. Hopkins is the best on contested catches from Ramon. Another D-Hop coming in here from Paige. Billy says Ridley. Kenneth says Ridley. So I think it's a Ridley majority, but it's tight. It's a little bit close here. Maybe a 55-45 or a 60-40 in favor of Calvin Ridley. Is the YouTube poll reflecting that?
YouTube poll's very young. It's barely 60 seconds old, but currently it is 60-40 Calvin Ridley. And it is, the votes are bouncing around. So 60-40 Calvin Ridley is a split. Maybe a little over 60 for Ridley at times. I actually am going to go with DeAndre Hopkins, and I have no idea where you're going to say with this, Sam. So this is straight off the cuff.
Yeah.
Like I think DeAndre Hopkins is more essential to the game plan. I think DeAndre Hopkins is a tone setter, and Ridley can be the counterpunch. And I think that is where these two players can be used best for each of their strengths. Ridley's the mid-range jumper that's tough to guard. I'm sorry, Hopkins is that mid-range jumper, tough to guard because he can make the contested catch. Ridley is your big play, your flash, but you have to be able to get the easy one first to then bounce off of it and go nice play, yak yards or down the field with Ridley. So I'm going to say DeAndre Hopkins is more essential in the game plan just because I just think it's a tone setter. I think it's a good foundation to lay.
I kind of disagree in like kind of every way. Not strictly disagree, right? I think so. My answer is Calvin Ridley.
Okay.
And it's because I think Ridley is the game plan and Hopkins is old reliable. Like Hopkins is going to get his regardless. You can always just throw 4 or 5 balls to Hopkins and he'll have 4 catches for 50 yards and a couple of big first downs. But in the game plan, Calvin Ridley is the guy that makes everything else work. If you're getting Calvin Ridley involved and you're taking the top off the defense and there's this threat of speed that is legitimate because it's getting targeted and used, I think it makes DeAndre Hopkins' life easier. It frees up Chigakonkwo and Josh Wiley and your running backs underneath and Tyler Boyd in the slot. So for me, Calvin Ridley being in that Jamar Chase type of role for this Bengals style of offense is what allows a T. Higgins to get one-on-one coverages and to make his plays. And I don't think it works as well because you don't really have a deep explosive threat if you're not throwing the ball to Calvin Ridley. I don't think that's how they're going to utilize Hopkins. I don't think Treylon Burks is effective in that position. So I think it has to be Calvin Ridley that's getting looks down the field and is making the big play. If one of them is going to get targets and make plays, I'd almost rather it be Ridley because I think you're going to get more yards when Ridley catches the ball than when Hopkins catches the ball. Is Hopkins more reliable? Yeah, but I don't think you need to game plan getting Hopkins the ball the way you need to game plan getting Ridley the ball.
Okay, so it's funny because like we both have a similar reasoning for the opposite guy. Like I think Hopkins is the foundation. You think Ridley's the foundation, and the other is the counterpunch. Yeah, I think it's easier to get Hopkins involved early in a play and early in a game than Ridley. I think Ridley at this point needs more scheming. Like when I think of Calvin Ridley schemed open, there's one play in particular that comes to my mind, Sam. And I want to say it was the first 3rd down conversion against the Jets, 3rd and 6 or something. And there was trip to the left. Ridley drags across the middle. Levis hits him in stride, and he catches the ball and sprints towards the right sideline and gains, I think, 20 plus. That was a really good play call, play design, and execution from everybody involved. Now, it did take the offensive line protecting a little longer. It took the other receivers running their guy off so Ridley could slide underneath. Levis was on. All these things worked. I think with DeAndre Hopkins, it's less complicated. I think it's more of just like Diop is going to run a route, find the zone, sit in it, or you throw a back shoulder fade ball on the sideline. Diop's going to make a play, catch the football, draw a PI, and you got a first down either way. So I think it's more essential, get D-Hop involved, let him get things rolling, and then Ridley can then come afterwards.
I can see that.
At least right now. Like, I think it can evolve. I think the more confidence that Levis gets, then maybe you can switch it up and have Ridley be that confidence roller, and then you can go the other way around. I just think right now D-Hop is your easy button. And that's where I would rather use the easy button right now because you're 1-3 and you've struggled offensively. So go hit the easy button, see if that opens things up for you.
Sure. Hey, they need to find a way to do it either way. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And look, we'll find out whatever happens with the other options in this. We talked a lot of Ridley and Hopkins, obviously, but look, they need other guys to step up too. And so I think if you get the main 2 guys involved, I think it'll become a lot easier for Boyd, Vannett, Chig, Wiley, and the running backs to all find soft zones in the defense. All right, Sam, are you ready for a little best bet action here?
Let's get after it.
All right, let's do it. So we've got a little best bet going into this game before good news. So stick around for good news. If you have good news, start to think on that and get that ready. A little best bet action for us here on A to Z. But first, Farm Bureau Plains is where you should go. for your health coverage needs. FBHP.com/ATOZ is their website and our link for their website to go get a quote and start that process to getting a better health coverage plan for you, your family, or whatever your situation is. Farm Bureau Health Plans has served Tennesseans for 78 years, and they know how to customize that plan for whatever your specific needs are and not just put you in some cookie cutter situation to help you save money on your rates and get a lower deductible, better coverage when it comes to dental or vision. They've got you covered there in the state. They care about the community and invest in the community. Online, FBHP.com/ATOZ.
Today's show powered by BetMGM. BetMGM is the sports book born in Vegas. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports when you sign up with BetMGM. Get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. So with our best bet on Titans Colts, if you miss, get your money back. That's the best way to do sports betting. I'm pulling up BetMGM right now. I'm going to figure out exactly what the bet is that you got to take. Do you have any gut instinct here, Austin, as the best bet for this game, given the injuries I feel like are the big factor when you're betting this game right now?
Yeah, so it is interesting because like the Titans are 2.5-point favorites on BetMGM, right?
Whatever, not to spoil all the fun. I might just say my best bet's Titans minus 2.5. I think they're going to win the game.
I saw Titans money line is a buyable price, like minus 135. Like 135 is kind of my cutoff for like a single bet. I mean, not
minus 145 right now on BetMGM. So maybe
it's moved a little bit. It was 135 yesterday, maybe. So more money has come in on the Titans money line, which is interesting.
Well,
right?
Hang on real quick because we just talked Ridley Hopkins.
Yes.
More likely to hit Calvin Ridley over 43.5 or DeAndre Hopkins over 40.5.
Those were on my board to pick between. I also looked at their receptions are each set at over under 3.5. So I'm like, but then again, I kind of want to look at
3.5 receptions, but like, you don't know.
Yeah. Like the other thing too is the Colts have the worst run defense in the NFL.
See, Tony Pollard 64.5 though. You don't know if it's going to be an even split. Tajay Spears 29.5. You don't know if it's going to be an 80-20 split.
Right. I lean more towards Hopkins over 40.5 than Ridley over 43.5.
Okay.
Because the trend is the last 6 quarters, the Titans were actually throwing the football. DeAndre Hopkins has 8 catches for 100 plus and a touchdown. I think that is the trend. His over under in Miami was 35.5 in the first half. He had 2 for 31. Damn it. He should have had more because I think we were all on that one. So I'm going to say over 40.5 for DeAndre Hopkins is where I am. That is my favorite of the props right now.
Titans player props scare the heck out of me. Just because we don't know what this team's offensive identity is right now.
Yep.
You know, you don't know, even if they run the ball well, how much like Tajay Spears is going to be involved in the run game. It's difficult to bet on. You don't know if it's going to be Hopkins getting 7 targets or Ridley getting 7 targets. And it's kind of a toss-up either way. And because of that, I'm going to go with Titans minus 2.5 is my favorite bet, just because I think they're going to win the game. If there's a player prop, cover your ears, because I know we just talked about not wanting to do this, but give me Chiga Okonkwo over 17.5 receiving yards. If I don't know if it's going to be Ridley or Hopkins, just give me Chig. And like Chig has kind of he's gotten a decent volume in pretty much every game. I will say he has not gone over 17.5 receiving yards yet this game. He's been at 15, 16, 15, 5. But I think if he has a couple of catches in this game, this could be a Chig game. So I don't know. That's a weird line to me. And so because that's a weird line, I'm just going to take the over. It's high. And so like maybe they know something. Maybe we hammer Chig.
Yeah. What if it's like Bill Callahan's like, yeah, you know what? Chig's going to be involved in the game plan. Like Bill's the leak to Vegas for like the lines of the Titans. I don't know. Like it is strange of that number. I was somebody just said Nick Folk field goals, 8 field goals. Like what is that number? Like that is something.
What is his field goal number?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find that scoring.
Field
prop.
goals made, Nick Folk over 1.5 minus 130. I feel like that is
I love that bet.
money.
That bet. Love
Kicking
that bet.
points. Nick Folk over 7.5. That's tough.
That's tougher because if you score
two touchdowns and 2 field goals is 8. 3 field goals is 9.
and it's over 7.5.
Yeah, plus 110, plus money over 7.5.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of the same bet, right? Because unless the Titans finish with like 13 points in the game, 2 field goals and a touchdown, right? Like they're going to get over 7.5 if they kick 2 field goals. The question is, do they kick 2 field goals? But if you're going to bet on them kicking 2 field goals, you might as well take the
7.5 points.
You might as well take the over 1.5 field goals made. Because he's not going to kick 1 field goal and 5 extra points.
True. Now, the over 1.5 field goals is minus 130. That's kind of my juice point that I'm like,
What's the other one?
Over 7.5 kicking points is plus 110.
Over 7.5 kicking points is plus 110. FanDuel has it at 6.5. Edward says, I would take 6.5 easily on the kicking points. 7.5. Part of the reason it's plus 110 is it's a little bit more sketch. I mean, you're talking 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals.
Or 3 field goals. Which, how many field goals? I mean, he's been kicking a lot of field goals. Like 3 field goals is absolutely normal. Like 3, yes.
I thought I looked at he had 2 field goals in the first 3 games combined.
Really?
Yeah. 1 for 1 against the Bears. They scored 17 points, 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Okay. 1 for 1 against the Jets. They scored 17 points. It was 2 touchdowns and a field goal. They scored 14 points on 2 touchdowns against Green Bay and did not kick a field goal. And then he made 5 field goals against the Dolphins.
See, kicking off, see, what are the numbers there? 7 field goals in 4 games. It's pretty good.
I guess. That's still not an average of 2.
No, but again, worst. I'm going to do it 7.5 points. I'm going Nick. I like the plus money.
The Folk hero, baby.
I'm going to go Nick Folk over 7.5. Do you like Nick Folk over 7.5 points or DeAndre Hopkins over 40.5 more?
I like Nick Folk more.
This is where we are.
The single offensive prop, right? And that's not against D-Hop. I just don't understand this offense yet at all to like bet on it. So,
but you know what I do feel confident in?
Nick Folk's
out in the red zone.
And Nick Folk's ability to make kicks. Yes. I mean, that guy is a machine. Because
how easy is it for the Titans to have like, it's 2nd and goal at the 6, sack, okay, field goal, right? Like that's totally going to happen. Just don't, you know what? That's, Nick Folk. If Will Levis didn't try to throw the football backwards to Tajay Spears, Titans would have another field goal.
True. That is true.
Okay. I like Nick Folk over 7.5 points. Okay. That's plus money too, at BetMGM at plus 110. Okay. Let's go ahead and wrap up this week. It's been a busy week with some good news. If you have your good news, throw it in the chat. We'll read it. Good news time to wrap up the Friday. Shout out to our friends at Wilson County Hyundai, wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Go make them a part of your new car buying process. See them in Lebanon or online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. So good news in the chat. Excuse me. I see some good news. I did see some early good news comment that I wanted to scroll back up to. But Sam, if you want to go ahead. Oh, here we go. Denise. Good news. 3-day weekend. Great for Denise. Why is it a 3-day weekend? I don't know why. Like, unless it's like a personal decision that
I was gonna say I don't. October 14th, weekend. Not a holiday.
No, and October 11th, also not a holiday. So maybe that's just a create your own.
Columbus Day, says Alex. Fake holiday.
So people have off for Columbus Day?
Apparently. Canadian Thanksgiving was this past Monday. Nice try, Steve.
Oh, you're aware.
Yes. I know my Canadian holidays.
Boxing Day is what day?
No idea.
December 26th. Come on. Day after Christmas.
Is that a Canadian holiday?
Yeah, Boxing Day. Don't ask me what it's for.
I know last week was Peace and Reconciliation Day in Manitoba.
Okay. There you go. So 3-day weekend in Canada. Oh, somebody says it's this Monday.
I don't know. I don't think that's true. I feel like I looked that up, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Is Columbus Day actually Monday? Yes, it is. And Indigenous Peoples Day too. I don't know that people get off for either of those things. I begin. We work in a non-real industry. Like we don't have.
Kind of ironic that those are on the same day.
I feel like that's on purpose, not ironic at all.
Well,
I'm like, hey, you're gonna celebrate one, you gotta celebrate the other. Anyway, but I feel like
they make that.
I don't know. My Google Calendar automatically has both
they
of them.
audibled from Columbus Day, and we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, they're both in green on my calendar for Monday the 14th. So bank holiday. So I guess if you work at a bank, that's actually interesting. That does matter to me. So I need to do something today. Payroll. I was going to do payroll on Monday, and I got to do payroll.
Oh yeah, bank holiday.
Bank holiday does matter. All right, but good news. Got distracted by that 3-day weekend. So Sam, do you have good news?
Yep, this is going to start another debate, but just whatever, because it started a debate in the Titans locker room yesterday. My good news is that baseball rocks, and the Major League Baseball playoffs are so much fun, and we've got both New York teams in the championship series and potentially coming into a Subway Series World Series, which would be sick. I'm here for it pretty much every game of the postseason, with the exception of like 1 or 2 blowouts, but like pretty much every game has been tight. There's been so many huge clutch moments, just proving that Major League Baseball is the best playoffs in sports. And in professional sports, the only one that is better is March Madness. And
I think baseball and hockey are the same in playoffs. Because baseball and hockey playoffs, the game-winning play could really happen at any second, and you have no idea. Like the game can alter in both those sports with any shift, with any pitch, and you have to pay attention to it. Whether it's what doesn't matter how much time.
I mean, hockey. I think
hockey playoffs are the most
next level for sure.
Yeah,
like they're up there.
I think hockey playoffs are better.
I think it's in my top 3. I would probably put it.
Well, there's how long is the list?
Well, I mean, I think hockey is substantially better than the NBA playoffs. I think it's better than the NFL playoffs. I think it's better than, that the rest of them.
Yeah, but football is just better.
Football's football, yeah. But like, there's not a jump to me. Like I think college football playoffs are probably the worst.
I mean, they have been. We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. I like something about the level of competition, how even the teams are, and like how good the games are, how quality the games are. I think the intensity of a series also like adds something that I think is good for some of these leagues.
I think if you're talking about the most intense, hockey has the most intense professional playoffs. Because
I don't agree with that.
Baseball, you get to breathe after each pitch. In hockey, you don't.
But there's a level of isolation that exists in baseball that puts more pressure on it. Baseball playoffs, especially late in games, is a kicker kicking a game-winning field goal. The entire time.
I don't disagree with that.
It is on an island. Everybody's looking at you. Everybody is like, and that doesn't exist in. Like, I think there is something about that breath, about that weight in between the action and stuff of like 20 seconds between every pitch that builds the intensity of a baseball playoff game more so than it even does when like people are whipping around for a hockey game. Like, I just think, I don't know. It's
there's not commercial breaks.
And the other thing that I find interesting about baseball that again cannot be replicated in hockey at all is this idea. You said like the game-winning play can happen at any time, which is true. It can literally happen at like any moment, I guess. Like, I feel like there's like every pitch could be bang.
Yep.
Like the game just changed, right? And I don't, because
Hockey's the same way though. It's
you can only
so
get one goal
fast.
at a time. You can only get one goal at a time. You can get 4 runs at a time in baseball.
Yeah, but one goal is there's more weight in one goal. And by the way, we're talking about professionals, Randy. We have already addressed March Madness is phenomenal, but this is professional, which is not college sports yet.
And Hill brings up probably the ultimate trump card for me. 27 outs. I think it's what makes baseball on another level, especially in the postseason, is that you can't run a clock out. You can't go up 3 goals or 3 scores and just like survive and advance your way to the end. You got to get all 27 outs. And when there's no clock and it's you and the batter and just like this ISO,
I think I would say this: College Baseball World Series is better than the Major League Baseball playoffs.
No way.
Yes.
Not even close.
Yes.
Not frankly, like legitimately not close.
All right. So beside the point,
I know that you had a great College World Series. Like your last College World Series experience was awesome.
Yeah. But why was this a conversation in a debate?
Oh, well, Chigakonkwo tried to tell me that the NBA playoffs are better than March Madness. And I said, Chig, that's because you went to Maryland and they haven't won a tournament game in like a decade. And so it sparked a whole debate where,
that's amazing.
Yeah, Chig was standing on his soapbox for the NBA playoffs. I said, brother, this is not the hill you want to die on. Quite possibly the worst playoff of all the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm just not an NBA person. I just can't. I can't get into it. I also don't I don't watch it. Like I just spoke hard. I went all in on hockey playoffs. I don't know the last time I've watched a hockey playoff game.
Exactly.
But I also don't know the last time my brother-in-law was over. He is a Phillies fan. So we watched the beginning of game 1. So technically I have watched a playoff game, but for like 5 innings. So, it doesn't really count in my opinion. All right. So more good news. That did create a debate. You are correct.
Yeah. I knew that was coming. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I saw somebody say good news. The Vols are going to get off the schneid with this weekend after the Arkansas game. And I hope so. Because
who they got?
Florida, man. This is
that's easy.
On paper.
Yep.
But this is
last time I told you a team stinks. It was Oklahoma and Tennessee mopped them. I'm gonna tell you right now, Florida stinks.
I agree, but this is different.
No,
like who is your
that's
who
what
is
you said about Oklahoma too? Because you're like, oh, Josh Heupel and all that, and I'm like, yeah. At the end of the day, that's a bad football team.
Yeah, and Tennessee won comfortably, but then they, this is the Florida trauma is the most high level trauma. For any Tennessee, like BVS setting in, you're damn right it is because of what happened last weekend at Arkansas. Is because Florida.
All right, so let's play a quick game. Tennessee loses to Florida.
All hell breaks loose. It's
fire Josh Heupel.
No,
maybe.
No, but there are some big time red flags, and they cannot lose to Florida at home against this team. It would be. I don't even know where to go with it if that happened. If they lose back-to-back games being 2 touchdown favorites, there will be people calling for Josh Heupel's head. It won't happen, but there will be people doing it.
Okay. I'm curious.
But that's
it's crazy that this is college football for you. The fact that you go from hey, we were going to win the national championship to like fire the coach in the span of 2 weeks is a legitimate thing that could happen.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, like literally thought they were the favorite for the national title, and 2 weeks later it could be like, hey, we
3 weeks ago, how mad were Vandy fans after they lost at Georgia State at Clark Lee?
Yeah.
And now they're like, lifetime contract, Clark Lee. Yeah, beat Vandy, lifetime. Or beat Bama. Yeah, it is. Yeah, but this is. Like the Florida game is me at my worst. And that is reality. It is me at my worst. I'm going to be a wreck all day tomorrow, leading up until 6:00. The only way I won't be a wreck is when Tennessee gets up 3 scores. that is when I will start to level back to normal. But I don't care if it's a 2-score game. I'm going to be antsy, not staying still, pacing. I don't know. This is me, literally me at my worst. Is Tennessee, Florida every year?
I can't wait for them to make the playoff and see how you react then.
Oh, Tennessee's in a playoff. I will be also terrible. I'm self-admittedly not fun to watch games with.
Fair. At least you're aware of it.
I know this is like one of the bigger problems in my life is dealing with my Vols anxiety on Saturdays. But so my good news is I'm just trying to prepare myself. I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah, I have a double good news.
Oh, okay. What you got?
Let's see. Yeah, so my good news is the fact that according to word from my fiance just now, I got tickets for next year in the summer, Nissan Stadium, Coldplay.
Oh, okay.
Epic.
Yeah.
Maybe the best concert out there, Coldplay.
I mean, I think it would be fun. I don't know how to get into that conversation, but you're just trying to create debate with your good news.
No, I'm
today.
just I'm pumped about that. I've always wanted to go see Coldplay just because they put on a show.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. I wonder if it would actually be better in Bridgestone than it would in a stadium.
Oh no, dude. You couldn't. Tickets would be $5,000.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about show. The performance, I think, would be better in an arena than in a stadium.
Oh, I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be great. Like
it'll be great.
They know what they're doing. They've
done this a time or two.
Yeah, they get all the the lights. Everybody gets a bracelet that turns yellow when they play yellow. I'm pumped.
Nice.
I'm pumped.
That's a good pull. So that's next summer.
Yeah, I know it's early, but hey, those are tough tickets, Coldplay. So
yeah, you gotta get them a full 10 months in advance.
Yeah.
So all right, solid. Okay, all right. That's it for us this week. We've got Vols game day shows tomorrow. That's on our YouTube channel and the Vol Facebook page that we've got. So check out Charlie Burris and Jonathan Crompton there with that halftime and post game show for Tennessee, Florida. Drink much? I mean, good Lord. All right. Make sure you hit the like button on the video on Facebook and on YouTube.
I'm alive.
Like the show before you go. And we'll see you guys Vols on Saturday. Easton and I will have Titans Colts pregame on Sunday. Appreciate it as always. Check you later.